Greetings, Earth Explorers. Welcome to X Squared Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew, coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains. This is where the past meets the future. In here, the results are always positive, or at least we endeavor to make them so. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You will be safely traveling with us. Let's get started. I've got the Religion of Peace report for you. In the last 7 days, the Religion of Peace conducted 27 attacks. In these 27 attacks, they killed 153 innocent people. They injured 108 innocent people. And they conducted no suicide blasts, but they spread their mayhem across 10 countries. All this from the Religion of Peace. All right, many people are asking what's going on in Hong Kong. Well, as it turns out, it looks like the army forces and police forces of China are winning. The protests in Hong Kong continue to intensify as hope wanes among the native protesters. Some of them are afraid, but they might as well go down fighting. The very extradition that they were fighting against is probably going to be used on them. When they're arrested, they're going to be put on trains, they're going to be shipped to China, and we will never hear from them again. But that would have happened anyway with the most minor offense. Even if you're just accused and not convicted, you will be extradited out of Hong Kong. Recent reports indicate that children as young as 11 are now fueling the protests, and violence between protesters and police is continuing to grow. According to the Wall Street Journal Friday, the protests of late have been some of the most bloody to date. There have been shootings, both with bullets and with arrows. Demonstrations that involved millions of people against a contested extradition law and police brutality have been roiling the Asian city-state since June. Since the British left Hong Kong in 1997, the southeastern autonomous region of China has been governed by the constitutional principle known as one country, two systems. But that changed when President Xi became, well, the dictator. High schools serve as natural points of contact for protesters to find like-minded supporters, organize, and to plan verbally, because they know they're being surveilled every which way you can think of. They have also become venues for dispute between student protesters and students who support the mainland China's rule, which a little difficult to understand, but different people have different motivations, different kinds of rewards for being a snitch, somebody who will tattle on their neighbor. China, in turn, subsequently rebukes everything that's going on there. The U.S. Senate also unanimously passed a bill this week called the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act. Pelosi signed it. And it's aimed at supporting the Hong Kong protesters in a rebuke of sorts to Chinese suppression of the demonstrators. Of course, China's not happy about that at all. Among the popular chants the protesters use is 5 demands, not one less. Those demands include the following: the complete withdrawal of an anti-extradition bill, which they have done in name, but they're actually still doing it. An independent commission to investigate police misconduct. By misconduct, I mean the police will come in, they will take their uniforms off, they will dress as protesters with masks and everything, and then they will go in and start fires and break things and try to shift the national blame, the international community, toward looking at them as being violent. Yes, police misconduct like that. A retraction of riot charges against the protesters, amnesty for protesters that have been arrested, and universal suffrage. The contested extradition law would send suspected criminals to be extradited to mainland China for prosecution. As I said, their organs would be donated. They'd be sent to camps. One way or the other, they would never be heard from again. Protesters told news organizations all over the world, including the Turkic Uyghur people, and what China has done China has done to the Uyghurs, many of whom continue to be held in brutal internment camps where grotesque state-sponsored human rights violations are being perpetrated, including the harvesting of organs. Yeah, you have the right blood type, you're 19, and we need a kidney. China may have wanted to make an example out of the region, but the lesson Hong Kongers took was the other direction. Resist with everything you have, because if you lose once, there will be a catastrophe for you and your people, and the world will ignore it. Carrie Lam, she is the chief executive of Hong Kong, is widely considered to be handpicked by Beijing, despite having been voted into office by 777 people out of the state's 1,200-person election committee. Many of those committed members are business people with close ties to the mainland. October polls revealed that her popularity in Hong Kong hovered around 22%. That's just above broccoli, I think, with only about 10% of Hong Kongers saying they would voluntarily vote for her. 10%. Wow, that's just one or two notches above hemorrhoids. In fact, it's well above where our Congress polls. Additionally, arsonists dressed in black wielding batons set a print shop and warehouse up in Hong Kong. The edition, warehouse right now. The edition of the Epoch Times ablaze on Tuesday. Although the attire resembles that of Hong Kong protesters, the outlet subsequently said that the attack was apparently done in an effort to confuse the situation. More police misconduct, I suppose, and they burnt the Epoch Times to the ground. Or maybe it didn't burn it to the ground, but they set it ablaze. Don't know if they got the fire out in time to salvage anything. Police and thugs have pretended to be protesters, journalists, and citizens, and committed violence, including beating, arson, and then blamed the protesters in an attempt to discredit them. Same thing that goes on here. Same exact thing that goes on here. In February 2006, thugs broke into the Epoch Times and attempted to smash the printers. In October 2012, thugs attempted to break into the print shop but could not smash open the gate. One thing is for sure, one thing we know there and here, when Democrats are losing, they get violent. They get violent. All right, and they also get nasty and they get conniving, and it's just it's frustrating to watch because you really don't know what you can do about it. For instance, let's talk just a little bit about the voter fraud in Virginia. The FBI and local police are investigating how at least 19 dead Virginians were recently re-registered to vote in this critical swing state. How did they do that? How did those dead people make it back out of the grave, go down to the voter registration office, sign their name, and give a proper address? That's just beyond me, I tell you. Night of the Living Dead in Virginia. Anyway, one case came to light after relatives of a deceased man, they kind of knew he was dead, received a note congratulating him for registering in Rockingham County in the Commonwealth's. Attorney Marcia Garst said Thursday his family members were very distraught because he didn't tell them he was coming back to vote. They would have kind of liked to have seen him again. Oh, maybe that's not what they were mad about. They confirmed the existence of the FBI and police investigation, but said they could provide few details because the case is ongoing. All 19 of these dead people were initially registered as voters in the Shenandoah Valley of Harrisonburg, although a clerk double-checking the entities later raised questions about one of them. She recognized the name of Richard Allen Claybrook Sr., who died in 2014 at the age of 87, because his son is a well-known local judge, and she happened to recall that the judge's father had actually died. So all the forms had been submitted by a private group that was working to register voters on the campus of James Madison University. I'm sure, exactly sure, the same thing is going on at your local university. It is something that is being networked through the universities. These activist groups are going out to register people to vote. Sounds noble, doesn't it? Hey, let's go down to the park. Let's go down to the beach. Let's go down to the racetrack and let's register voters. Sure, let's do it. Yeah, well, that's kind of hard to do because you actually have to talk to living people. It's a lot easier to register dead people. And that's exactly what's going on. By the way, this group that was doing the registering at James Madison, not identified. No charges have been filed either. It was only the memory of the clerk who was double-checking the voter registrations that caught this particular voter fraud. But it goes on everywhere, every day. In Boston, there are over 100,000 foreign citizens that are registered to vote. Yeah, it's true. It's true. And in Chicago, over 100,000. In California, the number is something like 1.4 million foreign citizens registered to vote, and they have already voted in local elections. What's to stop them? What's to stop them? Nothing. And believe me, they're going to pull out all the stops. They're going to do whatever it takes to win this election. All right, let's talk about the moon. Why not? Also, I want to let you know that later on this hour, we are going to talk about the reign of the judges. A lot of people are wondering why all this is going on. Why the impeachment trials? Why this impeachment sham? Why pull these non-fact witnesses, these opinion witnesses out of the ranks of the bureaucracies to testify that they think they heard something from somebody and, you know, well, I have a really good English accent and I have a super good haircut and I'm just going to look good. I'm going to make sure that everything that I think I heard, I think I can convey to you. And by the way, Epstein did not kill himself. Oh, no, that's another discussion. That's another discussion altogether. Why do it? Why do the secret meetings? Why do the public shift show? The shift show happened for one reason and one reason only. Well, I'm going to tell you. I'll tell you in just a few minutes. Let's talk about the moon first. Bao Weimin, who is the director of the Science and Technology Commission of the China Aerospace Science and Technology Corporation, which I think that is just under the deputy chief director of paper towels there, has been reported in Chinese and Russian state media as suggesting that China would benefit from establishing an Earth-Moon Special Economic Zone. What a great idea, don't you think? Wow. Wouldn't you love to have a grant to build a small company to put stuff on the moon? Huh? It would be good, don't you think? Bao said that Beijing is considering creating the first Earth-Moon Economic Zone by the year 2050. That's too far away. It's too far away for me. I want to be involved in this. Anyway, according to him, China is planning to invest in studies on how much it would cost for the idea to come to fruition, as well as for the deployment of a transportation system linking Earth and its natural satellite. Well, now that I could participate in. I got some stuff you need to see if you'll send me a check. The CASC, these always have to have an acronym to go with them, is the main contractor for China's national space program, while the project could bring in around $10 trillion for China. The State-linked Science and Technology Daily paper reported. We see with an Earth-Moon Economic Zone, China aims to ensure that it has the ability and the first presence, right, to establish the rules of behavior for who has access and who can benefit. Like they do Beijing. You got to have a good attitude while you're on the moon. This also has long-term implications for U.S.-China, U.S.-Russia, China-Russia, and China-India relations as well. All have moon-based exploration programs currently underway, although none are really doing anything other than just looking at it. Bao said that the field has huge economic potential, and thus the country should study reliable, low-cost aerospace transport systems between Earth and the moon. The basic technology is set to be finished by 2030. It's not far away. While the key transport technology is expected to be created by 2040. By the middle of the century, China could most likely will have successfully established the space economic zone, a lot like they've done with South Africa, although I think it's going to be hard-pressed to put the moon in debt. We'll talk about that a little bit later. China's been rapidly developing its space sector. We call that the space race, and I have always said, since I was a little kid, he who controls the moon will eventually control the Earth. China has already started investing in space-based solar power, a technology that it plans to use to power a lunar base. Other important steps on Beijing's way to establishing an Earth-Moon economic zone would be a study on the feasibility of 3D printing and lunar manufacturing by 2035, as well as a manned lunar mission. All this, of course, we thought of first. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. I got my blue book right back here on the shelf. We thought of it first. Sending large gantry-style 3D printers to the moon to use lunar soil and compounds to manufacture structures. And, of course, my suggestion was to use the 3D printers very slowly, no matter how long it took, to close in the volcanic vent on the face of the moon and pressurize it to use as an inside-the-moon city. Away from the radiation of the sun, away from the cold temperatures and the vacuum of space, and able to create an environment where you didn't even have to wear a suit on the while working on the moon. So it's interesting because Dezan Shira and Associates, Chris Devonshire Ellis, makes this comment. This is a legal group. While the proposal sounds fun, there's a very serious component to this. And I bring this question up to you. Maybe you can put the answer in the chat room. I'll pull a chat room. And also, I'll open the phone lines at 213-233-3998. You can give your opinion here. Who owns the moon? According to the United Nations Outer Space Treaty, signed by every spacefaring country, no nation can claim sovereignty over Earth's lunar satellite. There were 102 countries that entered into this in 1967. In 1967, 102 countries entered into this agreement. You know, a lot of those countries don't even exist anymore. China joined in 1983. And I suspect that Mr. Bao's intent is to lay grounds for Beijing to start to erode the existing treaty and to begin the process of permitting ownership of lunar sites in the future. Here's your permit. Only cost you, $1 billion. And by the way, you can send the royalty check here for that as well. Lots going on in the chat room. By the way, YouTube has changed their format again. And so it took a little bit to get on tonight. And the chat room now is a black background with white text. That's a little difficult to switch back and forth with the eyes. But lots of people in the chat room. And please pay close attention to that little square at the bottom that has a $sign in it. You know what that is? Ha! That's Top Chat. That's right. We're there. We're monetized. So if you want to help us keep the lights on here at X Squared Radio, help me make the transition from a highly paid, highly decorated professional engineer to a not so well paid but highly decorated talk radio host, you can donate there and help me make the transition. I'm just saying. I saved up a lot of money, and next year I'm going to take advantage of it and not engineer so much. The 17-hour days are kind of getting to me. Let's talk a little bit about the Gaza wars. There's a lot going on in Gaza. The newly filed $90 million U.S. lawsuit has charged a Palestinian human rights group. That sounds kind of funny, doesn't it? The Palestinian Human Rights Group. I have to look that up for a second. What's a Palestinian? I mean, no, yes. But, I mean, if you could define that for me, I mean, I keep up with stuff. I read stuff. I know stuff. I can put like whole group of words together in like a sentence and stuff. And I don't know what a Palestinian is. But let's just talk about this just for a moment. A Palestinian human rights group. I'm still trying to wrap my arms around that one. Anyway, they managed to get their hands on financing. Yeah, a lot of it. A lot of it. And they're financing hundreds of acts of environmental terrorism along Israel's southern border with Gaza. That's crazy. Who would do that? Oh, yes, I remember. What was the one with the little panda? The World Wildlife Federation, the WWF. No, not the SmackDown WWF. I'm talking about the little badge, with the panda's face. That's it. The World Wildlife Federation. Yeah, they were busted for funneling money to terrorist groups. Kind of crazy. Anyway, the lawsuit filed at midnight, Israel time, Wednesday of this week. It exposes an alleged conspiracy between the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights, that go by the acronym USCPR, also known as Education for a Just Peace in the Middle East. And they also go by the name of Hamas. And they also go by the name of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. They have one more name. The Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine and other designated terrorist organizations. And so they've been funneling money to these organizations to buy the stuff and build the rockets and the kites. They light these like Molotov cocktail kites or balloons, and they take them off, they fly them over the fence a little ways, and then they cut the string or they shoot the balloon or whatever, and then the Molotov cocktail drops on the Israeli side and bursts into flames, which has burned buildings, and it's burned a lot of land as well. The landmark case exposes a shocking, although well-known to us, and multi-layered planned conspiracy and campaign aimed at manipulating the public. Her group developed the evidentiary basis for the litigation filed in court in Washington by the Karen Kameth L'Israel Jewish National Fund and 12 American citizens living in Israel. It seeks to hold the American-based 501c3 USCPR financially liable for conspiring to provide financial aid that supported a massive wave of Palestinian-launched incendiary balloons and kites from the Gaza Strip into southern Israel, sparking hundreds of gas fires throughout the area and causing physical and mental harm to local residents. Here's a quote. It cannot be that Hamas maintains its aggression toward Israel without those who provide material support to Hamas being responsible for paying for its violent acts of terror, not only for attacking Israeli citizens, but also for committing hideous environmental terror against Israel's nature and wildlife, devastated by these fires. This is Chairman Daniel Attar. He is the chairman of the KKL JNF World Chairman. Let's see. The whole world is worried about the environment, trying to plant more and more trees, and these terrorists are destroying them with their kites and their fires. So it's an interesting strategy. Instead of going after the criminal activities, you go after them where it hurts. No, it wasn't just a small amount. Over 2,200 fires destroyed more than 14,200 hectares. That's about a little under 40,000 acres of agricultural land. This is bad. I mean, you can attack people, but my gosh, attack the land? Now that's just going a little too far. The suit explains that the BNC, a Palestinian coalition led by designated terror organizations, has been using these funds to funnel tax-deductible donations to it under the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions Movement, also known as BDS. So they're not only sanctioning Israel for its, what they call, occupation, but they're trying to burn it to the ground. And they're using American money to do it. and American nonprofits to do it. I told people that have been on this program, and Bridget Gabriel as well, that they should stop using the nonprofits in this country to funnel money to these terror organizations. We're going to take a quick break, 3 minutes. We'll be right back. We'll talk about the reign of the judges. You YouTubers, hang out. We'll be right back. Don't go away. This is the America Free Radio Studio on the Truth Frequency Radio Network. And my name is Brooks Agnew. Glad you're tuned in. We are also here on YouTube Live. We are broadcasting by sound on tfrlive.com.
Discover the extraordinary powers of intuitive healing with pain transmutation, a method of holistic healing for the human soul, body, mind, and emotions. If you are looking for answers and a deep understanding of how to help yourself and the people around you to live a happier, healthier life, this is the right place for you. Learn how to read your soul's history in the Akashic Records. Remove negative energy attachments from your astral body and start the process of inner and outer pain transmutation. Join Pain Transmutation Community to get started on the path of intuitive healing. Change your energetic state. Manifest new and exciting experiences. Re-energize your life and build inspiring connections with others in our community.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
If you have hard water, the Lime Scale not only leaves white spots, it clogs pipes and breaks down appliances, costing you hundreds of dollars in energy and wear. Eliminate Lime Scale and other water issues like brown staining and bad odors with HydroCare water products, available from Wave Home Solutions. Wave's affordable water systems don't use salts or chemicals. You'll love the way your water tastes, smells, and looks. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death. This is Uncle Walt from the Ironworks. Josh, Corey, and I have chosen to look at life with no fear. No fear of the unknown. No fear of questions about the supposedly well-known. No fear of ridicule for thinking outside the familiar fool's lines. No fear of the boot on the neck of those refusing the party line. No fear of taking on those so convinced of their beliefs they would sooner drink the Kool-Aid than believe they've been fools made. In this world filled with me too, cattle think, can truth's protective layers be peeled back to show the tender, juicy pink? Are we all just grist for the mill? Souls sold against our will, or is that just how it feels? When you're filled to the rim with triviality so fear-filled and grim, break clear of the fear right here. Tuesdays and Fridays at 2 a.m. on TFR. Josh and I and you will hammer out the impurities of technology-driven groupthink, fold in a dash of logic, and quench it all with a bit of absurdity. The Ironworks. Break clear of the fear.
You are now tuned into the truth frequency.
Your protection from deception. TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
right, welcome back to X Squared Radio at the America Free Radio Studios on Truth Frequency Radio Network. The phone lines are open 213-233-3998. And thank you all for being out there. I got people, let's see, Jen is out there in California, Terry's in Seattle. Let's see, we got Bomar. Zaid is out there. No, I'm not running for president, Zaid, just so you know. Kirk and Terry, let's see. Sandra, hello to you too. Monica is out there, and Marie. Yes, good evening, everyone. This is the Sunday before Thanksgiving, so we're gonna have a special Thanksgiving Day broadcast, probably. I'm not sure if you all will be here. We may run a rebroadcast that night. Depends. You could just tell me in the chat room if you're going to be here. I'll be here too. I also wanted to let you know that it's coming up on Christmas, and I know we do celebrate Christmas here. We have a great Christmas special here, as close as I can get to Christmas, with a Sunday episode of X Squared Radio. But it's also a time of giving great gifts to one another. And I like gadgets, of course, little gadgets, especially little things like this. This is so cool. My little R2D2, those kinds of things. But, you can also give something that will change people's lives. You can give them a book. And I happen to be an author. I happen to have 10 books in print. And you'll see the covers of them flashing right there on YouTube. They're all available on Amazon under my name, Brooks Agnew. And they'd make good gifts for you to give from your heart to them. It just depends on what they like reading, because it ranges everywhere from nonfiction about government and the history of government to full-on, full-throttle, white-knuckle ride novel that we call Faction. It's a factual history with fictional characters that take you through it. The Birth Trilogy, of course, and the one that remains in the top 100. Man, it's been there for about 2 years. It's really, really doing well. Charm of Favor. Charm of Favor is about the rise of the Clinton crime syndicate. So if you have a Trump supporter in your group of friends, I know some of you do, they're going to love that book. They're going to love that book. I'm just telling you, it's a good book and it's a great ending, and I have had no bad comments about the book whatsoever. All right, I want to talk a little bit about the reign of the judges. A federal jury in San Francisco found undercover journalist David Daleiden. You know who he is? He works with Project Veritas. Right. They're associated with the Center for Medical Progress, and they're been held liable by this court for the crimes alleged against them by Planned Parenthood and 7 of its affiliate organizations. After hearing closing arguments on Tuesday and Wednesday, a panel of 10 jurors deliberated over 6 weeks worth of testimony for 2 days before deciding Daleiden and his colleagues owe Planned Parenthood $870,000 in punitive damages and over $500,000 in compensatory damages for their undercover investigation into Planned Parenthood's trafficking of aborted baby body parts. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. The criminals, the murderers, the butchers were able to get a judgment against the reporters who exposed them. The verdict found the defendants guilty under the Federal Racketeering Influenced Corrupt Organizations, that's the RICO Act, under other crime, among other crimes such as trespassing. In a statement released by the Center for Medical Progress, Daleiden said the decision is a threat to citizen journalism and First Amendment rights. Here's what he says. While top Planned Parenthood witnesses spent 6 weeks testifying under oath that the undercover videos are true and Planned Parenthood sold fetal organs on a quid pro basis, a biased judge with close Planned Parenthood ties spent 6 weeks influencing the jury with predetermined rulings and by suppressing video evidence, all in order to rubber stamp Planned Parenthood's lawsuit attack on the First Amendment. He goes on, there is a dangerous precedent here for citizen journalism and First Amendment civil rights across the country, sending a message that speaking truth and facts, criticizing the powerful, is no longer protected by our institutions, close quote. Earlier in the week, Judge William Orrick ordered the jury to find Delayden guilty of trespassing at Planned Parenthood conferences and clinics. By the way, I think, wasn't Jane Fonda found guilty of trespassing recently? Yes, I believe she was. Was she fined anything? No, I don't believe she was. Did she serve any jail time? No, I don't believe she did. Yeah, guilty of trespassing. Didn't cost her no $870,000, did it? He said, I've already determined that these defendants trespassed at each of these locations, the judge said. As he explained to the jury, they must accept his rulings and only decide what damages Planned Parenthood should be awarded, if any. Throughout the trial, this Judge Orrick, not to be associated with the vacuum cleaner company, proved to be a biased judge, repeatedly cutting off defense questioning he considered straying too close to eliciting information related to Planned Parenthood's history of selling tissue from aborted fetuses. Quote, I just want to be very clear that I want these witnesses to be able to testify as to what their reasonable state of mind was with respect to the specific defense, but we're not going into the truth of abortion procedures. I've excluded that. Sort of like, we're not going to reveal the name of the whistleblower. I'm not going to allow that. Nope, not going to allow that at all, even though it's perfectly legal. Orrick founded a family resource center in San Francisco. And guess what happens to rent from it? Yep, a Planned Parenthood clinic. In 2017, at the onset of the lawsuit, Delayden and his co-defendant Sandra Merritt asked for Orrick to recuse himself. I would have done exactly the same thing because of his ongoing and long-standing professional and financial relationship with Planned Parenthood. But after the verdict was issued on Friday, Peter Breen, lead defense attorney, vice president, and senior counsel at the Thomas More Society, said they plan to seek vindication for David on appeal. I would do that too. I definitely would do that too. But it's going to cost money. I'm sure they got a GoFundMe going somewhere, and Project Veritas has been doing quite well. Delayden testified in October that it was an undercover ABC News 2020 report on fetal tissue trafficking that inspired him to record similar undercover videos. A video of the report was then played for the jury, featuring footage recorded by an undercover ABC producer, which the judge did allow, who posed as a potential investor interviewing an abortion doctor. Lila Rose, anti-abortion activist and founder of Live Action, said Delayden and the CMP should appeal the guilty verdict, and I'm sure they will. So what does this all boil down to? Why did I bring this up? Why is this story so important? I will tell you. Because what we have been undergoing in this country for at least a generation, maybe two, is the activism through the judiciary, through the judges. I call it the reign of the judges. Now, in our country, in our republic, we have three branches of government. They're sort of co-equal, but they have different powers. The executive, which is made up of the president and vice president, that's it. That's all. And, of course, all of the agencies, departments, bureaus, and administrations that operate under the executive. Then you have the legislative. That's the one that we've been listening to all week with the Shift Show. And then we have the judicial. Now, the judicial branch, we start with the Supreme Court, and then we work our way down through a series of federal judges. There are about 870. I'll explain that to you in just a minute. Normally what happens is a law is passed by Congress The law goes out there, it goes into practice, it doesn't work exactly as it was planned, and people get offended, people get discriminated against, people get harmed, and they sue. They hire attorneys and they sue and they lose. And then it goes up to a higher court, and eventually it's ruled on by a federal court and then ruled on by the Supreme Court if you get the chance to get on the docket. And that ruling should be to compare that law against the Constitution. Now, the Constitution is not a huge document. It's not voluminous. It's not 27,000 pages. It is a short, concise document. So the idea is that the Constitution should be the foundation of all law in this country, right? The issue comes as these nuances in ambiguities that do exist in the Constitution are interpreted by judges. That can stray far from the original intent because of a practice called precedence. Precedence is where, and according to Marbury versus Madison, which was a test of wills between Chief Justice of the Supreme Court and Thomas Jefferson. And believe me, it was not a friendly relationship there. What eventually happened was that the Supreme Court won. The Supreme Court was able to take previous decisions as a foundation for future decisions. That's basically what precedence is. And so very carefully, over a period of time, because they have lots and lots of cases to choose from, like this one we just talked about, they carefully engineer the decisions, little baby steps at a time. Hey, we can win this case. Hey, we can win this case. We can win with this one. And in the decisions that are written at the end of the verdict, you know, there's always some agreement or dissidence or basically pro or con that's written by the judge panel about the various decisions. You have a minority and a majority decision, basically, just to make it simple. Certain guidelines are laid down that can be used for future decisions. And if you're very careful with how you lay these things down, you can create law, which is exactly what has been happening. We get to the point where the Supreme Court becomes the ultimate legal activist. They can make decisions which have the force of law, even though they don't write law. A perfect case in point is the 1973 decision on Roe versus Wade. That did not write new law. There is no law, making it legal to have an abortion. The decision makes it illegal to ban abortion. And so it's stood on as a foundation. And it has created a multi-$100 billion industry, an entire industry in this country. And it feeds tens of millions of dollars every single year into the coffers of the Democrat Party. When something comes along that threatens that flow of money, we're talking about over nearly $60 million a year that the Democrats get every single year from taxpayer money. Yes, they do. It's just a step or two. The Congress gives $500 million in aid to Planned Parenthood each year. Planned Parenthood then turns around and writes a check for $56 million to the Democrat Party. $0 to the Republicans. It's a money laundering scheme. It's worth a lot of money. It's over $1 million per state. And not all the states use that money because they don't need to. California doesn't need to use the money. Some of the other states, Massachusetts, they don't need to use the money. The money is used in areas where candidates need money to run against Republicans. They need money to be able to run commercials, to be able to run ads, to be able to buy those stupid signs you see waving everywhere, stuck in yards everywhere. It costs money. So, why all the anti-Trump hatred? One reason and one reason only, and I will give you the reason right now. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was admitted to Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, Maryland a couple nights ago after experiencing chills and a fever earlier in the day. She was initially evaluated at Sibley Memorial Hospital in Washington, D.C., transferred to Johns Hopkins, and she was released today. Early in November, what they were calling a stomach bug forced the 86-year-old to miss arguments. She returned for a public meeting on November 18th. She had numerous surgical treatments for a cancer in her stomach and pancreas. The latter is almost always rapidly fatal, but apparently not in her case. Then she fell and she broke 3 ribs. That makes it really hard to take a deep breath. And what do you get when you can't take a deep breath and you're old? You get pneumonia, which is exactly what she got. Somehow she recovered from that. She underwent cancer surgery on her lung in December of 2018. She received radiation treatment for pancreatic cancer in August. She also survived colorectal cancer in 1999, another bout with pancreatic cancer in 2009. That's 10 years. Many Americans believe that she is the bulkhead of liberal activism on the bench and has been the leader many times of new law being legislated from the bench. Despite ongoing speculation of her retirement, the justice signaled in August that she has no plans to step down from the bench. She's waiting. She's waiting for Trump to be out of office. Had she retired while Obama was president, her liberal replacement would already be in place, but she did not. So all you left-wingers out there have only her to blame for this situation. We are witnessing an endgame scenario for the socialists, okay? This is not good because when they get backed into a corner, they get very violent. They knew this as well, years ahead of time. They groomed nearly 24 candidates for the 2016 presidential election. The only real enemy they saw in the field was Ted Cruz, and they had already placed foreign spies into his campaign as early as January of 2016. They knew politics, and they knew Ted Cruz and his vulnerabilities. He was the best debater. He was the best statesman. He was the best lawyer among the field, and the Democrats hated him. What they did not expect was the successful entrance of Donald Trump into the campaign. They did not expect that 63 million sleeping Americans, a large number of whom had never voted before, would look up from their grindstones and their plows and come to the polls to elect a man who was not and would never be a politician. This exposed one absolutely fatal flaw in the global syndicate's plan to overthrow America without having to fight its indestructible military. Donald Trump could replace 5 Supreme Court justices in 8 years and restore the rule of law for the next 2 generations. It was a long game plan for the global syndicate. Ginsburg was appointed by then President Jimmy Carter to the U.S. Court of Appeals in 1980 and appointed to the Supreme Court by then President Clinton in 1993. With 86-year-old liberal Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg enduring a series of health scares, the question of whether President Donald Trump will get to make a 3rd U.S. Supreme Court appointment before the 2020 election lingers as the 9 justices prepare to begin their new term this week. The justices held a private conference last week to discuss taking new cases after a 3-month summer break, opening their next 9-month term with arguments pending in the coming weeks in major cases. Trump, who took office in 2017 and is seeking re-election next year, already has appointed 2 justices, conservatives Brett Kavanaugh and Neil Gorsuch, who have pushed the court further to the right. Actually, I think they've let it lean back up straight, which is where it should have been all along. The court has 5-4 conservative majority. 2 of the 4 liberal justices are over 80 years old, including Stephen Breyer, who turned to 81 last month. Ginsburg, a justice since 1993, underwent radiation therapy in August to treat a cancerous tumor in her pancreas. Let me tell you something, Earth Explorers. The stakes could not be higher for the Supreme Court. There's also rumors of Justice Thomas retiring. That's 3. That would make 5. With Trump's fellow Republicans in control of the Senate, which wields confirmation over federal judicial nominations, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is well placed to push through another Trump Supreme Court appointment, even if the vacancy arises close to the November 2020 election. If Trump, running for re-election, were to win a second 4-year term, he potentially would be able to replace both Ginsburg and Breyer, leaving the court with a rock-solid 7-2 conservative majority, possibly for decades to come. Now, that could mean that a rightward shift on numerous matters, including abortion restrictions, expanding gun rights, blunting the advance of the LGBTQ, and let's call it the plus, and the plus is really the M, which is the minor attracted ones, the ones that are attracted to your 8-year-old. It's not their fault. Maintaining the death penalty and bolstering the interests of corporations. So, McConnell in 2016 refused to allow the Senate to act when Democrat former President Barack Obama nominated federal appellate judge Merrick Garland to fill a vacancy created by the death of conservative Justice Antonin Scalia. In justifying their inaction on Garland, McConnell and other Republicans argued that the Senate should not confirm a Supreme Court nominee during a presidential election year. That's what he said. That was the argument that he used. Trump won the 2016 election and in 2017 named Gorsuch to replace Scalia. So Ginsburg's been hanging in there. The diminutive and frail-looking justice also appeared in recent weeks alongside Justice Sonia Sotomayor at an event celebrating retired Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, 89, the first woman to serve on the board. According to Ginsburg, who was a pioneering women's rights lawyer before becoming a justice and has become something of an icon to American liberals, Breyer keeps a lower profile. His most recent public appearance was in London on September 16th. He's not known to have any health scares since a bicycle fall in 2013 when he fractured his shoulder. Former senior Republican Senate aide Mike Davis, who runs a group called the Article 3 Project, I'll explain that to you in just a minute, that he set up to support Trump's judicial nominations, said he would expect Republicans to be energized by any potential election year vacancy, but Davis also said he would expect Democrats to put up one hell of a fight. If people thought that Justice Kavanaugh's confirmation fight was ugly, oh, you just wait. You just wait till Ginsburg dies. It will be full-on pitchforks and torches. No president since Republican Ronald Reagan has appointed more than 2 justices to the Supreme Court. Reagan named 3 in his 8 years as president. The last president to have had more than 2 Supreme Court justices appointments in his first term of office was President Nixon. Liberal activists are resigned to the idea that Republicans would seize any opening to expand the court's conservative majority, even if a vacancy occurs close to the 2020 election. And don't you think for one second that they wouldn't seize on exactly the same opportunity. They would jump at the chance, jump at it. Now, why the full-on fight, though? Why this posturing? They would jump at the chance to make it a 6-3 majority. And I don't think it matters to them. It's a raw power grab on their part, said Christopher Kang, chief counsel at the liberal legal activist group Demand Justice. Sounds like fun, doesn't it? I demand justice, too. We call it the Day of Justice on this program. we realize that Americans have lost faith in the rule of law in the United States of America. And even worse, other countries have lost faith in our rule of law. And we are demanding a day of justice. You know what that means? That means orange jumpsuits. It means ankle chains and handcuffs. We want to see a string of perps like John Brennan and James Clapper and Susan Rice and Valerie Jarrett and Samantha Power and Ben Rhodes and Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. Yes, I can hear you cheering out there. I can hear it. We want to see them marched into court, tried, convicted, and sentenced. That's the day of justice. That's the day of justice. And so they have been preemptively striking against the president. We'll cover that at the top of the hour. You've watched it on TV. Now it's time to hear my take on it. We'll be right back after this.
Truth Frequency Radio is your #1 source for news and information without the hate, hype, and fear. We're proud to feature cutting-edge programs like Beyond the Veil with Chris and Cherie Geo, X Squared with Brooks Agnew, Paranormal Portal with Brent Thomas, Sharonism Raw with Sharon and Missa, Fearless with Frank Castle, Strange World with Mark Sargent, The Eye of Ra with Ra Castaldo, The Infinite Fringe with Billy Ray, Ironworks with Josh Corey, The Kev Baker Show, and dozens more. Did you know you can listen from any telephone by dialing 641-793-7117 or call into your favorite show toll free at 833-TFR-LIVE. Uncensored talk and news you won't hear in the mainstream media. Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception.
Navy Secretary's firing. Reaction to impeachment probe. I'm Evan Haining. The Secretary of Defense has asked Navy Secretary Richard Spencer to resign for reportedly bypassing the chain of command and going straight to President Trump to resolve Trump's complaints about Navy SEAL Eddie Gallagher. Gallagher was convicted of bringing discredit to the armed services and demoted. Trump overturned the demotion, but correspondent Ryan Brown is also hearing other stories.
One from President Trump, who says Spencer was fired. In a tweet said that Spencer was fired because of how he handled the Gallagher case overall and because of cost overruns. And we got a letter from Spencer himself. He says he was fired because of his refusal to follow an order that he thought would violate good order and discipline, that was unethical. That is likely referring to the Gallagher case here. And President Trump's clearly stated desire to keep Gallagher and the Navy SEALs.
Trump is nominating the ambassador to Norway, Ken Braithwaite, to replace Spencer. Well, last week, more testimony in the impeachment inquiry. This weekend, more reaction. Democrat Adam Schiff, head of the House Intelligence Committee, told CNN State of the Union he knows exactly what Trump is all about.
I have no illusions about Donald Trump doing what's right for the country or what's best for the country. That's never been where he's coming from.
North Dakota Republican Congressman Kelly Armstrong told CBS's Face the Nation that that was not his take on the hearings.
When you come from a state like mine and you continue to work through all of these things, I just don't think that it, as a political exercise, I don't think it has been a success for the Democrats over the last 2 weeks.
Ahead of Thanksgiving, there's freezing rain, sleet, and snow in parts of the Northeast. Snow is continuing in the Midwest, and Southern California is bracing for heavy rain starting Tuesday. This could pose a problem for the 50 million travelers expected to go around the country.
This is the Truth Frequency Radio Network. TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome back to X Squared Radio. We're here at the America Free Radio Studios, part of the Truth Frequency Radio Network. This is where the Truth Freaks hang out, and we're not afraid to let our Truth Freak flag fly. Listen, one quick commercial here. Those of you that are traveling or call internationally for business, you can call your family and friends and just have them load up the W app or the P app or the T app or the S app, and you can talk back and forth for free. But in business, it's a little bit different. We don't ask them to load an app where their metadata and conversations might be listened to or shared with anyone, because that information is retained by those app providers. But you can get WowieTel. It's WOWITEL, WowieTel. And there's the link there for you YouTubers, for people that are listening. It is wowietel.com. And the promo code is / capital B, capital A, BA. Those are my initials, BA2019. If you go to WowieTel and you sign up, you can call any phone anywhere in the world, anytime, and they don't have to have an app. You can call a landline. You can call a corporation. You can call your salespeople. You can call business people with WowieTel. Unlimited calling for one fee per month. You can get the same thing from AT&T for one country for $10 a day. One country. This app, you can call all countries as many times as you want for one fee per month. And it's very low. Trust me, it's well worth the money. I use it. It's crystal clear. Works fine. And I can call people in Bali if I want to. All right, let's get back to the program. You got to keep in mind when you're watching the Shift Show this last week that these activist groups are well paid by global syndicate sources to bribe, blackmail, and threaten bureaucrats and politicians to get results. And they often are more dreaded than the assassins. Look at the results of the recent impeachment show. They brought in Marie Yovanovitch. All right? Let's think about this. Who was she? She was appointed ambassador to Ukraine by Obama in May of 2016. That, by the way, was only 6 months before his presidency ended. He brought her in for a reason. He had something he had to get done. He had something he needed to cover up. He had something he wanted to make sure was buried deep so that it could not come up later. From 2008 to 2011, she was Bush's and Obama's ambassador to Armenia. Bush removed her predecessor, Ambassador John Evans, from the Armenia post after he rightly called the Turkish Holocaust of Armenians a genocide. But then Bush nominated Richard Hoagland to be a U.S. ambassador to Armenia, but he refused to acknowledge the Turkish Holocaust as a genocide. So the Senate rejected him. Didn't get approved. So Yovanovitch was the next nominee for the post. And she got the message not to call it genocide, but to fudge it enough to placate the Armenian Americans. So she played along and she refused to call the Meds Yagurn, the Turkish Holocaust of 1.5 million Armenians between 1915 and 1923, a genocide. In the words of Senator Robert Menendez, this is the guy that stood trial for fraud, and also was in the trial, it came out that he had hired an underage prostitute. Somehow the judge messed it up, and guess what? Menendez is still there. Anyway, it was reported by the Associated Press on June 19, 2008, when he questioned her during hearings on her nomination. It is a shame that career Foreign Service officers have to be brought before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and find difficulty in acknowledging historical facts and find difficulty in acknowledging the realities of what has been internationally recognized. And it is amazing to me that we could talk about millions, 1.5 million human beings who were slaughtered. We could talk about those who were raped. We could talk about those who were forcibly pushed out of their country. And we can have presidential acknowledgments of that, but then we cannot call it what it is. Where is the controversy in her being recalled? She had to be replaced just as the United Kingdom replaced their American ambassador, Nigel Kim Darich, a.k.a. Baron Darich of Q, not Q, the letter Q, QKEW, after diplomatic cables were leaked revealing his disrespect for the American president. Well, you know what? That's how it goes. How long ago was The Guardian headlining a story, U.S. diplomats cry foul as Obama donors take over top embassy jobs? These donor-class ambassadors bought their positions for an average of $1.8 million per seat in raised or bundled money. Why? Why would you pay that much for an ambassador seat, you ask yourself? Because they can make 10 times that amount in favors and money laundering deals in the foreign countries where they serve. Yovanovitch has a list of protected corporations that President Zelensky, the new president, was to avoid investigating. And at the top of the list was Burisma. That is what Rudy Giuliani found. And now Yovanovitch wants to tug at our emotions by breaking down in tears. Adam Schiff for Brains, in presenting Yovanovitch to the American people as a star witness, as his star chamber witness, the same Adam Schiff for Brains was elected to represent the congressional district that proudly boasts the largest Armenian American population of any district in America. We may wonder whether amid her tears, Yovanovitch finally will find a way to mouth the words genocide for Schiff's 70,000 Armenian American constituents, assuming he even remembers or cares who the hell they are. Let's look at Fiona Hill, shall we? And please, not too long. She came straight out of George Soros's Open Society. Enough said there, right? I don't want to talk about Fiona Hill anymore. It gives me a rash. The other supposed witness with superhuman hearing was David Holmes. He's a syndicate spy acting as a political counselor to the United States Embassy in Ukraine's capital. He was privy to high-level conversations between top American and Ukrainian officials. His job was to take detailed notes of their conversations, as he supposed. Mr. Holmes, the one with the perfect hair that you saw, who holds degrees from Pomona College in California, the University of St. Andrews in Scotland, and Princeton University, joined the State Department under President George W. Bush. Since then, he has been stationed in Russia, Afghanistan, India, Colombia, and Kosovo. You remember Kosovo, don't you? He also served on the National Security Council in Washington. Young guy too. Accomplished. But in March of 2019, Mr. Holmes noted a major shift. Instead of a diplomatic policy focused on supporting Ukrainian democratic reform and resistance to Russian aggression, he said in written testimony presented on Friday, it became overshadowed by a political agenda being promoted by Rudy Giuliani and a cadre of officials operating with a direct channel to the White House. Really? A political agenda in a foreign country. Imagine that. Wow. What a novel idea. Why do you think he made this sudden shift in priorities? Because he was ordered to by the syndicate. They knew why Rudy was there in January of 2019. What did I say? That's a little different than the fake stream news has been telling you. Yes, Rudy was there in January, working to defend his client, Donald Trump. He was investigating the corruption in the 2016 election that took place during the 2016 election. He was hunting for the money trail that led directly to the Clinton crime syndicate. Oh, it bears her name. But she had partners. She was not going to be a president. She was going to be the cleaner. This all comes down to seizing control of the third branch of government, the judiciary. The main game is the Supreme Court. But the other part of that game is the federal judge population. Yeah, about 870 federal judges. There are currently 870 authorized Article III judgeships, 9 on the Supreme Court, 179 on the Court of Appeals, 673 for the district courts, and 9 on the Court of International Trade. They're called Article III federal judges, as opposed to judges in some courts with special jurisdictions. They serve, and I quote, during good behavior. Okay? It's often paraphrased as an appointment for life. Now, these federal judges hold their seats until they resign, they die, or they are removed from office, which is not easy to do. Although the legal orthodoxy is that judges cannot be removed from office except by impeachment by the House of Representatives, followed by conviction by the Senate, several legal scholars, including William Rehnquist, Sai Krishna Prakash, and Stephen D. Smith, have argued that the good behavior clause may, in theory, actually permit removal by way of a writ of scire facias filed before a federal court without resort to impeachment. Now, I personally think that this is a slippery slope that would weaken the rule of law by making judges subject to retribution for rulings against the donor class. I think that impeachment could be made much more effective if crimes like pedophilia or money laundering could be streamlined into better areas of focus. You see, here's the thing to remember. Federal district judges are paid about, as of 2018, $208,000 a year. Circuit judges about $220,600. Associate justices of the Supreme Court, $255,300, and the Chief Justice of the United States, $267,000. All were permitted to earn a maximum of an additional $21,000 a year for teaching. It is this envy for money that creates the problem. Because in the world of high-powered legal services, this is chump change. Yeah, and it's a big problem. Hear me out. Please hear me out before you fill up the chat room with, oh my God, I can't believe they make that much money. In considering the cost of raising the salary for federal judges, we are not talking about even a medium-sized company, let alone a burdensome agency, like the GSA with 12,500 employees. No. Raising the salary to, say, even $350,000 a year would only be $87 million annually. That's it. I mean, that's less than the lunch money for the UN. This may terminate bottom feeding for slip and fall lawyers who are being appointed as federal judges for the law mall where activists buy rulings for donations to the right political campaign. On this analysis, I agree with Chief Justice John Roberts, who has repeatedly pleaded for an increase in judicial pay. Are you listening, Mr. President? Please. I believe the situation is a constitutional crisis that threatens to undermine the strength and independence of the rule of law itself. You already see how the Constitution has been tattered by activist slip and fall lawyers who think they can enact an injunction in Hawaii that stops the executive from preventing immigration from dangerous regions of the world that don't even have a form of government. The problem is that the most talented associates at the best U.S. law firms with judicial clerkship experience, in other words, the attorneys who qualified to become the next generation of federal judges, they already earn as much as a federal judge in their first year as full-time associates. In fact, the bonus for a high-value win, a single one at the firm, may yield a single bonus higher than a federal judge's annual salary. That's the problem. Thus, when good and accomplished attorneys with a good performance record of tested cases and rulings eventually become experienced partners and reach the stage in life where one would normally consider switching to public service, their interest in joining the judiciary is tempered by the prospect of a huge pay cut to what they were making 10 to 20 years earlier, adjusted for inflation. In other words, we get men who have never been in court in their lives, but have sued for insurance settlements for accidents for a living. I know at least a dozen attorneys right now, who make more than $150,000 a year and have never been in court. Some haven't been in court in 10 years. They will make fine federal judges someday, I'm sure. It has been proposed that these high-performance attorneys can soften the financial blow by, spending a few years on the bench and then returning to private practice or going to private arbitration. But I can tell you right now what's going to happen. I can tell you right now. Such turnover creates a risk of a revolving door judiciary subject to regulatory capture. In other words, a whole new agency that keeps records on career movements of these judges would be created. And we already have a problem with politicians doing that with the world's largest corporations, a la Google and Netflix. You see, it isn't against the law to make political decisions that make global corporations billions of dollars in new profits in exchange for a cushy job at a corporation when the political job is over. Doing this with federal judges would turn the entire judiciary into a brothel of favors and blackmail. So, the syndicate is battling to stop Trump from making an appointment to the Supreme Court, and they will stop at nothing, including war, including an epic act of terrorism, to make sure that does not happen. Tomorrow, he said he would make a nomination to the Supreme Court if there's a vacancy before 2020 presidential election. I'm pretty sure that he would. He was asked about it. He said, would I do that? Of course, Trump said in an exclusive interview with The Hill when asked if he would try to fill a high court vacancy during election season. If there were 3 days left, I'd put somebody up hoping that I could get them done in 3 days, okay? That's what he said. The syndicate couldn't get the left-wing judge Garland approved because Democrats didn't have the Senate. This angle makes it sound like Democrats were somehow responsible for Garland's shabby treatment. But whatever. From the Republican point of view, they stole this Supreme Court seat for Justice Gorsuch fair and square. But if Trump and McConnell were concerned about looking like hypocrites, they'd have no choice but to fill a Supreme Court vacancy this year. And Trump is right. If it had to happen in 3 days, they'd make every effort to go from nomination to confirmation in that time. Everything that happens in that branch of government for the next 50 years depends on this one replacement. Who is going to get to replace Ruth Bader Ginsburg? I hear you. It would be, I know. Weekend at Bader's. I know. They would keep her alive if they had to prop her up as a wax mannequin. If they had to get a double to sit in there and have a voice box behind her with somebody speaking They would try anything. That is why we are at war with the global syndicate right now. They have their own set of laws they want enacted, and they cannot do it with the U.S. Constitution in their way. Which leads us to the end result, I would say, penultimate end to the republic itself, if this impeachment goes through. President Trump is heard this week saying, I want a trial. That's what he said. I want a trial. And all of you are saying, yeah, let's do that. Then we can call our own witnesses. Listen, the President of the United States said a couple days ago that his title alone would be reason enough to make it the most significant thing said in 2019. But there's much more to it, because Donald Trump's demand highlights the historically unique set of circumstances he and the nation face in 2020. As of now, and I'm calling it out right here on America Free Radio, the biggest head fake in history is that the new year will feature an impeachment trial in the Senate, followed by the presidential election. Why do I say that? Well, I'm glad you asked. If Congress impeaches President Trump, it will be straight down party lines. That is an impeachment of America, not President Trump, because America overwhelmingly elected him to do a job, and he is doing that job against all odds. What was it that we elected Donald Trump to do? I'm waiting. Oh, you forgot already. Okay, I get it. Lower taxes. That's good. What else? Okay, you're getting off in the weeds here. Hang on a second. We hired him to do two things: build the wall and drain the swamp. He has failed at both of those things for the same reason that this impeachment will probably happen. The global syndicate controls this government from the inside through thousands of career bureaucrats. We saw two of the worst swamp rats in Washington, D.C. this last week at the Schiff Show. Fiona Hill was nailed as an agent of sedition in 2017 by none other than Roger Stone, who, by the way, just got convicted on all counts. That's going to be appealed, though. I mean, that whole ruling, that's another story. David Holmes, the guy with the perfect hair, was an Obama-groomed spy who provided progress reports on the money laundering operations in Ukraine. They're only a small sample of the agents working to prevent that wall and to make sure the swamp outlives this president. You recall your history? Andrew Johnson, impeached in 1868, was later denied his party's nomination for a second term. Bill Clinton won his second term before he was impeached. Don't think for a single millisecond, and please, Mr. President, if you're listening right now, listen to these words. Don't think for a millisecond that the most powerful propaganda machine in a three-star systems won't be pedal to the metal to use impeachment as a cudgel to break your legs. Is Trump serious? Please, Mr. President, if you are listening, stop this impeachment now. You have to stop it. I can see your chess move that, given the flimsy allegations and the unfair one-party nature of the House process, beating impeachment in the Senate seems close to a sure thing. And doing so would dramatically boost your chances of getting elected for 4 more years. But please listen to me. If Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Representative Adam Schiff for Brains can't muster 218 votes on a set of articles after 5 long days of the Schiff Show, then this threat is over, at least for now. Let it go. Stop calling for the impeachment. No president has ever had to face 2 impeachments, but I wouldn't put him past them to try. Pelosi has picked her poison by embracing the whistleblower complaint before she saw the transcript of Trump's call with the president of Ukraine. Turning back now, not an option for them. So she'll beg, bribe, and twist the arms of any reluctant Democrats to get to 218 votes. That vote will probably come this month, next month maybe, with a Senate trial starting in January. I have more on this. Don't go away. Right at the bottom of the hour, we'll be back with more X Squared Radio on the America Free Radio Studios on the Truth Frequency Radio Network. Don't go away. I'm Brooks Agnew. Hang out, you YouTubers. We'll take a quick break. Let me get to my the right page here so you can see it. We'll be right back.
Extendivite, a 7-herb combination made from garlic, cayenne, hawthorn, bilberry, ginkgo biloba, valerian, and milk thistle. Extendivite feeds our body with the right nutrients to keep us healthy. Just listen to what Arthur has to say.
I was just calling to tell you what a great product you have. I had used this about 10 years ago after I had congestive heart failure. And it fixed me up and got me going for the last 10 years. Lately, I've been having heart trouble again, so I placed another order because this was the only thing that ever worked. And I just wanted to let you know that you have a great product.
To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies in a capsule.
It's a great product. And the one thing I like about it the most is that when you open the bottles, you can smell like the scent of the fruits and veggies. It's no genius thing to it. It's really just fruits and veggies, which everyone needs. And you guys kind of put it in a way where you can take it easy and you can get it and it's natural. And that's what I like about it. You know, I like the product and, I've taken it, and it's definitely made me feel a lot better. You know, I'm a healthy person to begin with, but it's definitely good prevention, and it's definitely gives me energy, and I feel like it's a natural thing. I like it. I really do.
For a limited time, use discount code TALK to receive a 50% discount on your first preferred whole health system and have it shipped to you free. Call 1-800-246-8751 or go online to balanceofnature.com. Again, use discount code TALK.
For 5,000 years, the world was ruled with wooden ships by one man. 242 years ago, a small group of free men crafted a new nation built on liberty and freedom. Global elites have been fighting to destroy this new nation called America ever since. Based on actual events, Charm of Favor tells a true story of how they corrupted the election system. They infiltrated federal agencies and murdered witnesses, judges, and even presidents to keep from being caught. Now, the largest and wealthiest crime syndicate the world has ever known has been drawn out of the shadows. They have killed hundreds of Americans and recently attempted to assassinate half our congressmen. Still, they escape arrest through an almost supernatural charm of favor. Read Charm of Favor and be prepared to open your eyes to what may lie just around the corner. Charm of Favor is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
Real people, real radio.
Initiating the truth frequency.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
Thank you all for being part of America Free Radio tonight. Those of you that are in the TFRLive.com chat room, that's free, by the way. It means it don't cost nothing. And those of you that are joining me tonight on YouTube Live, thank you very much. Chat room is flowing nicely there. I appreciate all the comments. I don't know who MG is, but good comments from you. Agatha, nice to see you again. And Bomar, good intelligent comments and matrix adjustments out there as well. Yeah, they're doing all this with our money. Let me give you one quick commercial here on my Second Chance Success Mentoring events. If you go to my website, which is brooksagnew.com, and you click on the Success Mentoring link, at the very bottom you're going to see 4 cities. You're going to see Seattle, Phoenix, Charlotte, and Auckland, New Zealand. Yes, we just recently added Auckland, New Zealand. If that is one of your cities or you're close to that city, you should click on that button and get a ticket to my Success Mentoring event. This is not a conference. There's not going to be other speakers there. There's not going to be a whole bunch of vendor tables there. It's 5.5 hours focused on you. If you've lost your way or you find yourself over 40 years old with no wealth to manage, we need to talk. Just let me come to you. 5.5 hours will change your life. It's the best $47 you ever spent in your life. Yeah, $47. No hotel, no airplane. If you want to, we'll feed you. Trust me. Click on the button, go to the Eventbrite site, and pick up your ticket. I know you're going to have a good time, and we'll finally get to meet. You get 2 copies of the book, Remembering the Future, signed at that. So that's $40 right there. It's a $297 value for $47. Show up. I promise you'll enjoy it. All right, let's get on with it. We have a lot to cover in this half hour. I know you're all excited about the trial. Many of you are salivating on it. You're saying, oh man, a trial in the Senate would be great because then we could call witnesses and then, the whistleblower and we'd have it all. Yeah, they'd all be going down. Well, listen, anytime you have a trial, you have rules. You saw what happened at the Schiff show, right? At the Schiff show, they had certain rules. Nope, you can't talk. Nope, you can't call witnesses. Nope, you can't even yield the balance of your time to someone of your choice. Only the majority can do that. Yeah, crazy rules, like Nazi rules, like freaking Soviet Union rules. One clear difference in the Senate from the House, though, no hearsay testimony. You're not going to have somebody say, well, I heard by the water cooler that, what they heard was what they heard, and in the elevator, or maybe it was the parking garage. I don't know. We were outside at some cafe, and he kind of held the phone away from his ear, and I swear, it said, this. How can you do that? You didn't hear. I'm just saying. Okay, so much of what passed for evidence there and spurred the most sensational headlines every single hour. I mean, when Adam Schiff for Brains would take a break, everyone else would go eat, and Adam would go outside and talk to the press. And within 15 minutes, the headlines on CNN were ripping everything their way. All this would go away, wouldn't be permitted in the Senate. But there's one thing that I believe will not be in his favor. And they're staying very, very quiet about this right now. But I'm going to let you know. And by the way, if you're listening there, Breitbart Radio in the morning, okay, with Alex Marlowe. Alex, you're probably not up right now because you got to get up in a few minutes. But when your show comes on tomorrow, I may try to call in. Those of you that listen to his broadcast on Sirius XM Patriot 125 often hear me call in on that program. And yeah, I mean, I shake things up. Of course I do. Of course I do. This is the America Free Radio Network. This is what we do. But you have to pay very, very close attention here, because I'm going to tell you something that's going to really open your eyes. It only takes 3 senators, not 67, not 51. 3 senators to make the vote to remove the president a secret vote, and they already have the 3. They already have Romney, Collins, and Murkowski. They've already been compromised. If they vote to make the vote a secret ballot as part of the Senate rules, then the blame gets spread around. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you think that more than 33% of the Senate is compromised? I'll just look at the chat room for a second here. More than 33% of the Senate, is it compromised? I'm dead serious here. Do you think the global syndicate has dirt on more than 33 senators? Yes or no? How about half? Half? How about 75%? That's kind of where I am. I'd say it's pretty close to this. Donor lists, girlfriends, child porn, Epstein trips and tapes, and there's so much more, so much more. Who is floating the idea that President Trump will be in good hands while he is blindfolded as they lead him across the tightrope of an impeachment trial? That's right. That's right. Leader Mitch McConnell. Do you trust him? Didn't think so. How about Paul Ryan? Did you trust him? Didn't think so. How about General Kelly? How about Admiral McMaster? How about Mattis? How about Scaramucci? How about Omarosa? Did any of those turn out to be Americans? No. When you look at what is at stake, the risk is extremely high. Don't risk losing everything just so you can call Adam Schiff for brains to the stand. Don't risk destroying America, the Supreme Court of the United States, the economy, the world, for the chance to get back at the Democrats. That is not the fight. That is not even a battle in the war. They are only soldiers working for a much larger and more ruthless enemy of humanity. The president's lawyers would have a wide latitude in a witness list and would use it to turn the tables on Democrats, the syndicate, and the Bidens. You think so? Trump likes nothing more than being on offense, and his aim would be to put his accusers on trial. But the rules of the Senate might not allow this. They will set the rules, you know. You want to know what they are? Get ready. Rule number 1. President Trump is the one on trial, and as such, no one else shall be accused of any wrongdoing in these proceedings. Any attempt to accuse a witness of any crime shall be considered tampering and intimidation, and it will not be allowed. Rule number 2. The departments, agencies, bureaus, and administrations shall recuse themselves from this trial as it is seen as a conflict of interest. Rule number 3. No elected or appointed official of any other branch of government shall be called as a witness for the defense. The Senate and the Senate alone shall make the decision about removal, and that will be based upon facts gathered during the trial. Rule number 4. No candidate or member of a candidate's immediate family may be called as a witness in this trial, as it is the ruling of the Senate that this will improperly meddle in the American election process. Rule number 5. No elected or appointed official of a foreign government shall have access to the impeachment trial, as this will be ruled by the Senate to be foreign meddling in an American election. And that's just for starters. I have more rules, but listen to me very carefully here. Do not trust the Senate, Mr. President. There is nothing to stop the Senate from holding hearings tomorrow morning to gather this testimony from all the sources that I just mentioned. Nothing. They could subpoena them tonight if they wanted to, but they won't. They do not want to. Lindsey Graham does not want to. Already the president has named 3 people he wants grilled, starting with Hunter Biden and his lucrative gig on the board of Burisma, a corrupt Ukrainian energy company, while his father was vice president. You want to know some of the sample questions they want to ask? Is it true you were discharged from the Navy for cocaine use months before being named to Burisma in 2014? Objection. That has nothing to do with the case at hand. Sustain. Do you speak Ukrainian? Objection. That is drawing a conclusion on the capabilities of the witness. What do you know about energy exploration and markets? Objection. Irrelevant. How many board meetings did you attend? Objection. Irrelevant. Is it true that you were paid more than $3 million over 5 years? Objection. That is an invasion into privacy. Isn't it true that you refused to give up your tax returns for the last 10 years? You see? How much more? Did you discuss the job with your father? Did you ask your father to intercede in Ukrainian politics to help Burisma? Those are apropos questions. I believe that they would be answered yes or no. But so what? If they're answered no, then what happens? And see, you got to accuse him of a crime. Then you have to have an investigation. Then you have to have an arrest and a trial, and he gets his day in court. You see what I'm saying? This is not Hunter Biden's day in court. It is not Hunter Biden's day in court. It is the president's day in court. Lindsey is about to go down in a way that I think he's going to regret his whole life. That's what Joe Biden told reporters. You think he just pulled that statement out of his butt? Nope. There's dirt on Lindsey Graham. Yep. Trust me. Listen to me very closely. The Senate is compromised. They will make this a secret ballot, and they will have some new evidence that will reveal their true minds about exonerating the president. Someone or something will come forward that will make them say they've had enough of this irregular order. You remember that? Oh, you forgot that already? You see, Mitch McConnell has said several times he just wanted things to get back to the regular order. You know what that means? That means order without Trump. Stop the impeachment tonight. Do not let the Congress approve it. Lobby the 34 Democrat congressmen who live in your states that are in Trump-controlled states. Lobby them. Do not let them vote in lockstep with the socialists. I know. I'm sorry about Tulsi Gabbard. She's not in one of those swing states. Okay, Hawaii's as liberal as it gets. But Tulsi Gabbard had a chance. She had a chance to distinguish herself, to set herself apart from the socialists. All she had to do was vote no. All she had to do was vote present, not vote up or down, just vote present. Anything but voting with the socialists. But she didn't. Tulsi Gabbard voted with the socialists, and for that reason, she's out. She's out. She cannot win the nomination because she's a socialist. I hate it. I hate it when a person who's fighting for our country, who's put her life at risk, gone through that training, put herself in a man's world, and succeeded, and vote with the socialists. It's heartbreaking to see. Heartbreaking. Make them vote no on the impeachment. That means the president has to become more likable for just a couple more weeks. You gotta do it. You have to be the nice guy, Mr. President. Stop asking for a trial. I agree, MG. She's out. in the chat room. He agrees with me. Tulsi Gabbard is out. All right, let me change the gears just a little bit. From the heart, okay? There has been amazing work done shedding light on the science of the heart. I'm dedicating my new lecture series to help people reduce stress, self-regulate emotions, and build energy and resilience for healthy, happy lives and for success, to unlock the bounty of the universe for you, to do what you want, to do what you dream instead of what you have to. A large portion of the research has investigated heart and brain interaction. I have researched from world-renowned experts and teachers who have examined how the heart and the brain communicate with each other and how that affects our consciousness and the way in which we perceive the world. And how we perceive the world is how we affect the world. For example, when a person is feeling really positive, emotions like gratitude or love or appreciation, the heart actually transmits through gray matter in the heart, neurons in the heart, a very powerful and healing energy, because the heart beats out the largest electromagnetic field produced in the body. It can yield significant data. Emotional information is actually coded and it's modulated into these fields. By learning to shift our emotions on purpose, with purpose, we are changing the information coded into the magnetic fields that are radiated by the heart, and that can impact those around us. People can feel it. We are fundamentally and deeply connected with each other, and also with the planet. And this is very important to know, as it shows how the heart plays an important role far beyond what is commonly known. For instance, did you know that your heart emits electromagnetic fields that can change according to your emotions? Did you know that these positive emotions create psychological benefits and physiological benefits to your body, and that you could boost your immune system by conjuring up positive emotions? Did you know that negative emotions can create nervous system chaos, and that positive emotions do the complete opposite? Did you know that the T cells, the T cells are sort of like the body's first responders. Anytime you get an infection, anytime there's inflammation, the T cells go right to it and transform into whatever is needed to put the body back into stasis, put the body back into good health. Did you know those T cells are like cops parked on the on-ramps watching for speeders? I hate to call them the T cells revenuers, but that's kind of what they are. And you know where those on-ramps are? Believe it or not, the on-ramps are around clusters of nerves that we don't really know what those nerves do. They don't operate a muscle. There's no organ close by. There's no sensing that has to go on there. We're not really sure why these nerve bundles are where they are. But this is where the T cells hang out. Many researchers believe, and I personally believe, that when you have this positive zone that you're in, I don't mean faking yourself out. I don't mean, while you're being dragged off to jail, somebody asks you how things are going. Things are going great. It's going wonderful. I don't mean that. I don't mean fooling yourself. I mean actually having that positive love energy in your heart. When those T cells are called into action, we believe that those signals come down to those nerve bundles, excite the T cells, and off they go to make you better. Most people that you see that have really negative attitudes, they're sick all the time. People that are nothing but drama all the time, they're sick all the time. We'll come back at the top of the hour. More X Squared Radio coming to you. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. That's not a 0. That's a 6. Because I looked down there and rechecked my time. I have more time. Did you know that the heart has a system of neurons that have both short-term and long-term memory, and that their signals sent to the brain can affect our emotional experiences You know, that's why people say, look, I feel this. I feel you. I feel for you. They don't reach to their head and say, I feel this. They reach for their heart. It's because that's where they feel it. That's where the sensation is. And did you know that in fetal development, the heart forms and starts beating before the brain is developed? Did you know that a mother's brain waves can synchronize to her baby's heartbeats? Did you know that the heart sends more information to the brain than vice versa? I'm trying to get you to see why it's critical for us to change the way we feel inside. And a lot of times we can be depressed and really not know why. You feel a pit in your stomach. Think for a moment. When's the last time you ate? Did you get drunk last night? Have you been taking drugs? There are reasons why your body feels the way that it does. And those feelings can induce an emotion in you, like, wow, I really feel bad about this. No, you don't. You need to take care of the body, take care of the heart, take care of the emotional state of your body, and then you can think clearly, because you're thinking with your heart a lot of that time. In our current human experience, the everyday life we all seem willing to participate in, it takes its toll on us. And many people feel that living the lifestyles we do, struggling to pay bills or find a place to live or find a job, constantly working and not getting anywhere, it's not really a natural way of life for the human race. They feel that way. A lot of people do. It's an experience that makes it hard to maintain a high frequency or positive state. What makes this unfortunate reality even more perplexing is the fact that it doesn't have to be that way. We are so much more capable as individuals, as a community, and as a race. Despite all the negativity in the world and our individual struggles, many people do manage to find inner peace and moments of joy. And that's pretty remarkable. You don't have to be rich. In fact, I sometimes find that people who are rich are quite miserable because they can't find challenge in their lives. They can't find purpose in their lives. In fact, it has nothing at all to do with economics or income inequality. It has nothing to do with the color of your skin. It has nothing to do with sex or the lack thereof, in spite of everything you hear on the propaganda media trying to perpetuate the false matrix that this is a zero-sum game. It is not. You know what that means? The globalists would have you believe that in order to win, someone else must lose. In order to have something, someone else must lose something. It's all about perspective. It's seeing the bigger picture and changing the way you look at things. There is unlimited bounty in the universe. I can tell you that. And it's yours for the creating. Notice, I did not say for the taking. I said for the creating. Because that's not how the universe works. It gives, but only in response to resonance. Happiness is no doubt an inside job, but with a human not resonating, it's going to be hard-pressed to maintain any sort of progress. Without resonance, you will not have access to the bounty of the universe. And this is evident in a variety of different areas where people are starting to stand up and demand change, as individuals and as groups. Why? Because when more people resonate with a single idea, it has a tremendous amount of force. In fact, it's unstoppable. More and more people are realizing that global control of all wealth by one small group of elites is wrong. They demand a life where everybody can thrive. There will always be suffering. But the sooner people realize that this is largely a matter of individual choice, the sooner the world can move into a better place. Religions are among the worst oppressors of women and children. We can choose to change the way we feel just by changing our thoughts. Negative emotions are usually a result of the thoughts we have about the people, things, events in our lives. But at the end of the day, it's just a human experience. That's all it is. And all experiences are opportunities for learning and growth. I know what you're saying. Hey, I'm tired of the opportunities here. Let's get on with the growth. And that's exactly why the Global Syndicate bathes you in their version of their world 24 hours a day. They are using your energy in the matrix to power their way of life. They are using you as surely as though they wired you to their grid while your real body sits in a broth of fake stream news. The bottom line is feelings of love, gratitude, and compassion. That's what you have to foster. I'll talk a little bit more about this when we get back at the top of the hour. More X Squared Radio coming at you right after this.
Truth Frequency Radio is your number one source for news and information without the hate, hype, and fear. We're proud to feature cutting-edge programs like The Christopher Everard Show, The Covert Report with Susan Lindauer, Enemy Within Radio with Tom Barnes, Freaky Friday with The Woo Crew, The Gematria Effect with Zachary Hubbard, America's Evil Genius with Travis Cook, Phoenix Rising Radio with Phoenix, Quantum Connections with Lucky, and dozens more. Did you know you can listen from any telephone by dialing 641-793-7117 or call into your favorite show toll free at 833-TFR-LIVE. Uncensored talk and news you won't hear in the mainstream media. Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception.
Top Navy official forced out. What Thanksgiving travelers may face. I'm Evan Haining. Navy Secretary Richard Spencer has been asked to resign. 3 different reasons are being given. Defense Secretary Mark Esper says he asked Spencer to leave because Spencer bypassed chain of command and talked with the White House to quietly resolve Navy SEAL Eddie Gallagher's demotion. President Trump is tweeting that large cost overruns contributed to Spencer's firing. And correspondent Ryan Brown says Spencer himself has now released a letter.
He says he was fired because of his refusal to follow an order that he thought would violate good order and discipline, that was unethical. That is likely referring to the Gallagher case here, and President Trump's clearly stated desire to keep Gallagher in the Navy SEALs. So it's very unusual to have such 3 kind of conflicting stories about a senior member of the Pentagon.
Tens of millions of us, count them, will travel for Thanksgiving. And correspondent David Daniel reports winter weather is going to make some of that travel treacherous.
In the Northeast, freezing rain is expected to turn to snow early in the week. From Philadelphia to New York to Boston, heavy rain could dampen plans, while snowfall is expected to blanket New England, possibly as far north as Maine.
Snow for the Midwest, too, and heavy rains for Southern California. In Alabama, Sergeant Steve Jarrett says the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency believes they have captured the man who killed Lowndes County Sheriff John Williams last night. The suspect is 18-year-old William Chase Johnson.
Details as to how he fled the scene and reappeared at the scene, all that's going to be investigated. That's going to be ongoing, but he has been taken into custody and transported from the scene to a local detention facility where obviously he's going to be interviewed.
Sheriff Williams had been answering a call at a convenience store. I'm Evan Haining.
You are now tuned into the Truth Frequency.
We are TFR. TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
Okay, welcome back to X Squared Radio on the America Free Radio Studio on the Truth Frequency Radio Network. This is where the Truth Freaks hang out, and we're not afraid to let our Truth Freak flag fly. If you have an opinion, you can always share it in the YouTube live chat room. My YouTube channel is Brooks Agnew. Everything is Brooks Agnew. I implore you to visit my website, brooksagnew.com. By the way, I did some analytics work on my YouTube this morning, and I found that only 14% of you have your notifications turned on for America Free Radio here at the studio. So would you do me a favor while you're listening tonight, or if you've subscribed recently and you're listening to this as an archive, would you turn the notifications on, and then you'll know when we're live. That way you don't have to keep looking at your watch. It'll pop up on your phone and you'll be ready to go. Thank you very much for doing that. We were talking about feelings of love, gratitude, and compassion. You know, this is a time of year when we see a little bit more of that, but it is less now than in years past because of the incredible pressure by the global syndicate to eliminate everything Jesus out of the Christmas season. In fact, the word Christmas has been relegated to the word holiday season. And they're little effects. They are tiny effects, but they're cumulative because of the power of resonance. When one person has a dream, they put it out there in the future, they can work on the aspects of that dream back here in the past by working on those things that resonate with that idea. And you'll know what they are right away because they'll light up, and I'll teach you how to find them. I'll show you what your path is from the future, and then we'll come back here to the past, and you'll be able to find the beginning of it pretty easily. You won't be lost in the woods anymore. It's a powerful tool to be able to have, but it's a lot easier when you get a bunch of people to do it with you, to resonate on that idea. If one person works to build a house, it can take a year. If 10 people work on a house, it can take a month. You see the difference? It's a big difference in people working together as a team. So it is difficult to find that compassion when it's a little bit like the song, you know, Knights in White Satin. Allegedly, it was written by a Mormon missionary, the words, Knights in White Satin. It wasn't Knights in White Satin, it was Knights in White Satin. Yeah, they're spelled the same, or spelled differently, but sound the same. Knights in White Satin is K-N-I-G-H-T-S. That kind of knight, like a knight with a sword and a shield. Knights in White Satin. Just what I'm going through, they can't understand. Just what you're going through is difficult for other people to understand. It's world number 4 in the 5 worlds of existence. You can read about that on my website too. The reason that you have to go through it by yourself is because the journey is individual. And once you've made it a few times, or once for sure, then you're stronger for it. When we take drugs or when we languish in that, then it becomes pathological. And you can have real problems trying to pull out of it. When you return to it over and over and over again, it can wear you down and break you down and eventually convince you to destroy yourself. And that's not what we're trying to do here in the human existence. It's what the global syndicate's trying to do, to make you lose hope, to make you lose faith, to make you rely on them and only them for your care and feeding. And that's not what we're about. What we want you to become is a sovereign being, a leaping, flying gazelle, an angel of a being with all power and all knowledge. We want you to have this large impact, not just on yourself, but on those around you. These principles are true. They work for good and they work for ill. I can tell you this because the Dark Lord and his global syndicate bathes you with their idea of the future all the time. They use you and they use your reaction to feed them energy, to make their version of the future resonate into reality. Well, I'm trying to teach you the tools so that you can use those powers for yourself, for good. Because that's what they're there for. These are all characteristics of consciousness. And as quantum physics is now showing us, consciousness plays a definite role in the creation of the universe. And I mean the real universe. Stars and planets and energy into matter. And if this is true, then how we feel about things has to play a role. This is a small picture of the material, but I can give you everything you need if you'll come to one of my live events. That's the last ad I'm going to make for it tonight. If you want to know more about it, you can go to my website. A fundamental conclusion of the new physics also acknowledges that the observer creates the reality. As observers, we are personally involved with the creation of our reality. Physics and physicists are being forced to admit that the universe is a mental construction. Pioneering physicist Sir James Jeans wrote this: "The stream of knowledge is heading toward a non-mechanical reality. The universe begins to look more like a great thought than a great machine. Mind no longer appears to be an accidental intruder into the realm of matter. We ought rather hail it as the creator and governor of the realm of matter. Get over it and accept the inarguable conclusion: the universe is immaterial, mental, and spiritual." And you can read about that in the book The Mental Universe. It was published in 2005 at Johns Hopkins University. All right, I want to talk a little bit about the Chinese economic hit. You know, the age when we had to, line up across a wheat field and shoot at each other is long gone. The age when one uniform drops out of the sky on another uniform and those uniforms fight until the last man standing, those days are over. The American military is indestructible, cannot be defeated. Anybody that tries is absolute suicide. But China does not have to march its army or sail its ships to conquer anymore. They do it with money. Or to put it another way, they do it with debt. The Chinese Development Bank, heralded by the World Bank as the savior of the third world, is slowly repossessing the world. In their latest conquest, the Kenyan government risks losing the lucrative Mombasa port to China should the country fail to pay huge loans advanced by Chinese lenders. This month, African Stand reported on how Kenya is at high risk of losing strategic assets over huge Chinese debt, and just after a few months, the Chinese are about to take action. The loans have been granted for the development of the Standard Gauge Railway, also known as the SGR. Now, also at stake is the Inland Container Depot in Nairobi, which receives and dispatches freight hauled on the new cargo trains from the seaport. Sounds like a great system, doesn't it? The Chinese put up the money. I'm sure they lent the engineering and the workmen and engineering and all that to put it together. Implications of a takeover would be grave, including the thousands of port workers who would be forced to work under the Chinese lenders. Management changes would immediately follow the port seizure, since the Chinese would naturally want to secure their interests. Further, revenues from the port would be directly sent to China for the servicing of an estimated $500 billion lent for construction of the two sections of the SGR. A couple of years ago, the Sri Lankan government lost its Hambantota port to China for a lease period of 99 years after failing to show commitment to the payment of billions of dollars in loans. The transfer, according to the New York Times, gave China control of the territory just a few hundred miles off the shores of rival India. Yeah. It is a strategic Chinese foothold along a critical commercial and military waterway. The case is one of the examples of China's ambitious use of loans and aid to gain influence around the world, specifically third world countries, but not exclusively third world countries, okay? In the likely scenario that China takes over the port, Kenya would be joining Sri Lanka, other debt-stressed nations. Let me read down through this. See, the Chinese are not stupid. They know exactly how hungry these nations are for money. It's as hungry as new manufacturing is in the United States. It is. I mean, my company right now, we're looking for investors. Are we finding them? No. Who have we talked to? Well, everybody in the United States, but we've also talked to foreign people. We've talked to people in Russia, we've talked to people in Kazakhstan, we've talked to people in England, and we've talked to people in China and India. The issue is that we see that you cannot, let me underline this. See, I'm going to put right up there. I'm going to underline that. You cannot start up a new venture on debt. You cannot do that. This is a perfect example of why it cannot be done. Because you lack one thing with a new company. You lack the ability to pay. To start up a new company, you need venture funds. Venture funds are investment funds. They're risk funds. The person with the money comes together with the person with the idea, and you create a marriage of those two resources, the technology and the money, to make the company happen. Yes, 90% of the time those companies fail. I am a statistician, and I can tell you that 90% of those companies fail for mostly two reasons. The one is poor management of the money. They spend the money on the wrong damn things. And the other thing is they just run out of other people's money. Those are the two reasons. You have to have equity to start up a company. You cannot start up a company on debt, because this is exactly what happens. The Auditor General has warned that the eventuality is likely because of a lopsided loan agreement that greatly favors the China Exim Bank. Exim stands for Export-Import, okay? We have one too. It's called the Exim Bank. We don't use it the same way they do. What we do is we buy invoices, we indemnify small companies, mostly. It's supposed to be small companies. I know Boeing uses it too. But if, let's say I sell a truck to somebody in Rotterdam, and there are buyers in Rotterdam. So they say, well, I don't want to send you a check for the truck until I get the truck. So what they do is they put up a letter of credit, an irrevocable letter of credit. The money hasn't moved yet, but neither has the truck. So I'm faithful now about putting the truck on a barge, shipping it to Rotterdam. They take it out, look it over, say, yeah, we really like it, release the letter of credit. But doesn't always work that way, because sometimes the letter of credit ain't worth the paper it's written on. So it has to be underwritten. That is to say, somebody you trust that really does have the money or has the authority to get the money underwrites the letter of credit. That's the Exim Bank. That's the Exim Bank. Now, under Obama, they did not do imports, only exports. So if you were importing something, you couldn't get the money. If you were exporting something, you could get the money. That's just the way it works. So how does this work? Well, let's say the truck costs $50,000. So the buyers in Rotterdam put up a $50,000 letter of credit. I don't think it's worth the paper it's written on, so I'm not putting my truck on a barge. It gets there, and the letter of credit turns out to be bogus, and the money doesn't transfer, and I've lost my truck. I'm out of business. So the Exim Bank underwrites that invoice 95%. That means that if the people over there don't pay the bill, the American taxpayer pays the bill. Not all of it. I mean, I lose 5%, but 5% is better than the cost of the entire truck. It works. It works for small business. That's why it's there. It is misused by big corporations, yes, but let's just think about this for a moment. Exim Bank then goes after that person for the money. And they have more resources over there than I would ever have. You don't want the Exim Bank coming after you. You don't want Chinese Exim Bank coming after you either. And that's exactly what's happened. They advanced the Kenya loan, okay? Specifically, Kenya got the short end of the stick in the agreement where any disputes arising from the debt servicing would be arbitrated in China. Anytime you have an arbitration agreement you sign, make damn sure it's arbitrated in your town, in dollars. Don't have it arbitrated in Indian rupees, and don't have it arbitrated in Mumbai, because then you have to fly to Mumbai to arbitrate with the arbitrator. And if you do get paid, you're going to get paid in rupees, which is worthless. It can fluctuate up and down so much you might not get 10 cents on the dollar. Okay, maybe 17 cents on the dollar. Well, an audit completed last month indicates that Kenya Port Authority, their assets, which are significant, which include the Mombasa port, which is probably the most valuable thing on the coast, could be taken over if the SGR does not generate enough cash to pay off the debts. You see, there's no equity in this deal. There's no venture side to this deal. It's all debt. And this is a big problem. An escrow account is a contractual arrangement in which a third party receives and disperses money with certain trigger language for the primary transacting parties, with the disbursement dependent upon conditions agreed to by the transacting parties. And, you know, when you're hungry, when you want to put a port together, when you want to lay some tracks and you want to put a train on it, you'll agree to just about anything. The money sounds so good. Then it sounds so good. There's so much money. We're never going to run out of money. Yeah, well, you got to make payments on that while you're building. And before you ever see the first dollar in revenue, you got to calculate all that in. And if construction takes a little bit longer than what you thought, the day that you earn the money back, it takes a little bit longer than you thought. And that's what happens. So just so you know, President Barack Obama mortgaged more than 770 million acres of American land so the Chinese could finance the $10 trillion in new debt he accrued in just 8 years. Did you see any of that money? No? Did you see any of the money in your community? No? You didn't see any new airports? You didn't see any new aircraft carriers? You didn't see any new highways or bridges rebuilt or anything for that $10 trillion? No? Have you ever asked yourself, where the hell did that $10 trillion go? You see, that economic hit right now is why we are where we are. The interest on that debt is precisely why we now have to obtain continuing resolutions to keep our government funded. Unless we have a windfall profit or drastically somehow negotiate a settlement on that debt or cut funding for a few years, we're never going to get out from underneath the ultimate Chinese invasion of America from the debt army. It's already done, and there's nothing you can do about it. Hopefully, the greatest businessman we've ever had as a president will figure out a way to get us out of it in his second term. All right. Let's talk a little bit about right teaching. The fact that socialists are openly running for public office in America, that socialists actually hold public office in Congress, should serve as enough wake-up call that the nation's moral and political compasses are way out of whack. They're skewed, and they are in dire need of correcting. The ship is leaning way over to the left, and we need to move back to the center. That's not going to be easy. It doesn't only scream this out, but it makes it probably vital to our survival. America's public school systems have become utter failures. You have a kid in the system, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So the one thing patriots in this country should throw all their efforts into right now is taking back the schools from the far leftists who've been able to dominate the direction of administration and teaching in recent years. I'd say a generation. Look at America's schools in recent years, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. When I was a citizen advocate to the school board, I had a kid in every school in the county, so I had a vested interest. One of the things that we did is we participated in the selection of textbooks for the schools. We would review textbooks. I was an expert in being able to evaluate the quality of textbooks that would be used by the school to teach our kids. Now, the textbooks had to be able to accomplish two things. First of all, they had to give the kids the right knowledge to be able to pass a state test, because the schools were evaluated on how they performed on that state test. The second thing they had to be able to do was to make give the kids enough knowledge so that they could perform for the federal requirements. They were different in those days. They were working to consolidate those two and get rid of the state requirements and only have federal requirements. And we campaigned against that too, because what it did is it cut down on the competition in the textbook writers. As it was, we got to look at a bunch of textbooks, and believe me, there were textbooks with an agenda. There were textbooks, let's see, one was called Heather Has Two Mommies, and the other one was called My Daddy Has a Roommate. Yeah, we didn't allow those books because that was promoted by the alphabet people, and we didn't want our kids in our school district to be taught those things. But see, the state allowed us to do that through the system of school boards, because we had a local school superintendent that made those decisions. It's not that way anymore. As recently as 20 years ago, the United States was ranked #1 in high school and college education. In 2009, the United States was ranked 18th out of 36 industrialized nations. Over that time, complacency and inefficiency, reflective of lower priorities in education and inconsistencies amongst the various school systems, contributed to a decline. That's partly to blame. So the main reason I think it happened is what we call administrative bloat. But there's more to it than that. Because between 1950 and 2009, the student population of American public schools grew by 96%. But the growth in teachers during that same time was 252%. You think that's high? Yeah, maybe. Smaller classrooms, maybe it's a good thing. But the growth of administrators, these are non-teachers. These are people that are in the school system but have nothing to do with educating a child. 702%. Yeah. America's public schools are bloated. They're fat with bureaucracy and skinny on results. One school, one principal used to be the norm. Nowadays, that same size school employs one principal, multiple assistant principals, numerous assistants to the assistant principals and principals, along with all the accompanying office staff. That doesn't even get to the guidance department, where ridiculously large numbers of guidance personnel are needed just to keep up with all the new social justice, diversity, tolerance, and anti-bullying campaigns that pass as education, occupying school hours that could be better spent, that used to be better spent, on math, history, science, and the like. Oh, it's your tax dollars at work. No, you didn't see any orange barrels. You didn't see any new airports. You didn't see any aircraft carriers, trains, highways, or new bridges. But you saw your schools explode with administrators. Why? I'm getting to that. Let's not forget about the creation of the biggest bureaucratic bloated float of them all, the Department of Education. where teachers' rights and union dollars take precedent over student achievement and real learning, where the rights of the parents to control their children's upbringing and education become subservient to the will of the government to train in the proper propaganda way. That's your Jimmy Carter at work. And this is what the government's training has brought. Arlington Public Schools quietly push transgender policies despite parent opposition. Let's see. My daughter thinks she's transgender. Her public school undermined my efforts to help her. The racist beginnings of standardized testing. It goes on and on and on. Black Lives Matter moved into the schools. Islam moved into the schools. Socialism moved into the schools. It goes on and on. I'm going to get to the point of this right at the bottom of the hour. Don't go away. More X Squared Radio coming at you right after this.
From the dawn of man, we have turned to nature to help attain balance within ourselves. But somewhere, we lost our way. Western culture is once again remembering the healing benefits of CBD, the non-psychoactive component of the hemp plant. That's why more and more people who use CBD report relief from inflammation and chronic pain, balanced blood sugar and cardiovascular system, relief from muscle tensions, tremors, migraines, headaches, anxiety, depression, and the list goes on. The big question is, where do you get it? IALife is a 99% pure CBD oil made with all organic ingredients, and it's available to TFR listeners worldwide. If you use coupon code TFR at checkout, you'll get $5 towards your order. Head on over to ialife.com now. That's AYA-life.com.
Hey folks, guess what the #1 phrase that Life Change Tea receives by email? You ready? We love this tea. We love this tea. Time after time, week after week, we love this tea. Life Change Tea gives you more energy, a beautiful cleansing, and fulfills its slogan perfectly, the tea that makes you go. So if you want to be on your health game, log on to getthetea.com and order Life Change Super Strength Tea. Packages come in a 1-month supply, and when you brew this stuff, wait until you see the results. Aren't we all about the results? And with a lot of people's health struggling, we can use a little bit of help. Doctors will tell you disease starts in the gut. So log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Be our next email saying, I love this tea. I mean, I love this tea. Get the tea at getthetea.com. Helping America one tea bag at a time.
For millennia, mankind has been searching for answers to the big questions, such as, where did the universe come from? Where did we come from? Why are we here? Are we alone? And just what the heck is the Sasquatch all about? I can't promise you answers, and neither can the Woo Crew, but they invite you to join them Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, midnight in the UK, for Freaky Friday, exclusively on Truth Frequency Radio. Spirituality, multiverse, quantum mechanics, the occult, and so much conspiracy analysis that it will make your mind melt. Take my word for it. Freaky Friday. It's more than a show. It's a way of life. I am Stephen Hawking, and I am proud to be a Wookiee.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
No hate, no hype, no fear. Real people, real radio.
I've been waiting for this moment since my first breath in. Never would have thought I'd be afraid to begin, but here I am, the edge of the water, wondering if I can swim.
That's what we do here at America Free Radio. We chase the truth. This is where the truth freaks hang out. We are not afraid to let our truth freak flag fly. Thank you so much for being with us tonight on the Truth Frequency Radio Network and also on the YouTube Live. Many good chats out there. Thank you so much for being there. I want to just let you know about the school system. I have, a place in my heart for the school system. I taught mathematics on the college level for a while, and I really enjoyed it. Didn't pay much. It was a second job, but, I enjoyed it. I really like being with people and watching them learn and grow. But having 4 kids myself and now 2 grandkids getting ready to enter into the school system before too long, the transgender fight alone should fuel patriots in general, and Christians in particular, to sit up, to stand up, and to shout out, no, not in my school. Is a boy who suddenly decides he's a girl going to go into my daughter's locker room and change clothes alongside her. Not in my school is my daughter going to be accused of hate speech for protesting the intrusion of privacy, the perversion of the schools. And when the schools won't listen, throw them out. Run for the school board. Take over the local education system and dominate the discussions. I did. Set the policies. Quiet the radical clowns. Hush the petulant, sue-happy special interests. I did. I went to the state capitol in Nashville and I argued my case, and I got those books thrown out. Those books were not accepted in our school system. You got to send the crazies back to Crazy Town. That right there is the single most effective action Christians, conservatives, constitutionalists, patriots, traditionalists can take right now to right this teetering ship called the public schools. You haven't thought about it much. You really haven't. But as Vladimir Lenin reportedly said, it only takes one generation of youth to transform the world. The left in America has had its generation. It's time to take back and teach right. I maintain that the quickest rinse that we can do is to get this propaganda out of the school systems. We have to end tenure in the school systems. We have to. During the 1920s, under the legal name Workers' Party of America, the Communist Party of the United States of America became active in education. The Communists split several times during the 1920s until it received full alignment with the Comintern in 1929. First, it addressed adult education, largely for non-native speaking Americans, with workers, schools focused on New York City with the New York Workers' School. Concurrently, the Communist Party of the United States began a campaign to gain control of the teachers' union. In the past 100 years, the various teachers' unions, the largest of which is the National Education Association with 3 million members, have become more of a national security threat than Al-Qaeda. They control the wages of the teachers. They control the minds of your children and the election process in nearly every single state. Look at what happened in Kentucky last week. 120,000 people left the vote for governor off their ballots. That was a direct result of voter fraud and teachers' unions. So that is my opinion. In 2020, Trump should write an executive order dissolving the teachers' unions and getting rid of tenure. Allow parents to get rid of teachers that push these agendas which are against the population in that area. Teach right. All right. China's not the only one making this miscalculation, but they've been the model for several things. False matrix. They launched the facial recognition program. They incorporated this with the social scoring program, which was an expansion of our own FICO slave scoring program. You know that program, don't you, where you receive a number that rates you on what kind of human you are. You know, are you in debt enough? Do you pay, or are you in debt just the right amount? Do you make those debt payments on time? Because if you do what we all dream, you do what every single person I ever knew dreamed, which is to earn enough money to become financially independent so you don't have to borrow money. You don't need credit cards anymore because you have the money in the bank to buy whatever you want. You have the money that when you go to the grocery and you go to the checkout stand, they filled your bags, put the bags back in the cart, and they scan your card. You don't even look at the receipt. You don't even look at the receipt. You take the groceries home and you feed your family. And you don't use a credit card. But the slave scoring system of FICO hates you. The highest you can ever see your score go is about a 620 or a 625. That's not even enough to buy a new car. They've also invested trillions of dollars in the concept of mega cities. I've been to them. I took a train outside of Shanghai, 140 miles. I think we went 315 kilometers an hour. It didn't take long to get there, let me tell you. We got off the train. We took a short cab ride to a 5-star hotel, which was absolutely gorgeous, just gorgeous hotel. Of course, there were only about 25 people in this 500-room hotel. I went up to one of the top floors, walked out on my balcony, to relax a little bit after, I don't know how many, a day and a half of travel to get there. I looked out over this mega city that they'd built called Jiangsu City. They probably spent $250 million easily. Maybe more than $250 billion, $250 billion to build the city. Wide streets, beautiful lights, buildings everywhere. In fact, right next to my hotel was a 1 million square foot Kia plant. It said Kia on the roof. I mean, big, huge 10-acre sign on the roof of this plant. The only trouble is there was no people. Streets were empty, grass growing up through the parking lot of that factory. They'd never hired the first person, never made the first car. They just built the mega city, thinking that they would move people from the rural areas to the city areas and control them. It didn't happen, and they're going broke. That is why this is such a crazy thought. That there's a city where the workers live in high-rise company apartments within walking distance of work and shopping. There's no need for private automobiles because all intercity travel is done with trains and all intra-city transportation is with buses and shuttles. Since the real estate crisis of 2008, most of the world's tallest buildings have been constructed across Asia. The Financial Times is reporting that a subsidiary of China's largest construction company recently halted work on the nation's tallest skyscraper after the developer went broke. He defaulted on a payment. The default comes at a time when China's economy is decelerating as Beijing conducts economic reforms to transition from an export-based economy to a more domestic, consumer-driven economy. In other words, they're not relying on us to buy their stuff. They're relying on them to buy their stuff. Also, trade tensions and global debt saturation have been other leading causes for China's slowdown. So the Financial Times obtained a copy of a letter that specified China Construction Third Engineering Bureau Company would halt construction on a 1,558-foot skyscraper in the central city of Wuhan. Details within the letter specified how Greenland Group, China's largest developer, had failed to make a significant payment to fund the project. You know, when you go to build something, you get a construction loan. The construction loan is supposed to pay for materials and labor and, you know, the stuff it takes to build it. The construction loan interest is usually quite high, 2%, 3%, even 4% of the unpaid balance each month. Yeah, that's 48% per year. So if you don't get the building done on time, if you have labor problems, material problems, something gets delayed, guess what you have to still make? You still have to make the interest payment. And if you miss the interest payment, the bank's not going to loan you any more money. And if you don't get any more money, no more glass, no more steel, no more drywall, no more wiring, no more workers, everything stops. And that's what happened. As China's economic growth slumps to 3-decade lows, credit for proper property developers has been turned off. So the interesting thing about this is there's a fundamental problem with this business model. It just relies on growth all the time. Growth. It's got to happen. If there's a downturn in economic activity, the builders go broke first. This apparent skyscraper index has been calling market tops for well over 100 years. And maybe the latest news coming from China is an ominous sign for global equities. And then again, the buildings are not actually torn down during these crises. We didn't do that in Charlotte. When things crashed in 2008, we had a lot of unfinished buildings in Charlotte. Guess what they are now? Finished. You know why? Because new investors came in. They bought that old debt. They bought that building for pennies on the dollar, and they finished it. And now it's rented out. They're beautiful. They're awesome. It keeps going from one debt to the next. You see, it's only the financial industry that takes the hit. The people are still forced to live in these planned communities. The countryside is still left vacant, exactly as the designers of Agenda 21 and not the creators, and are now the creators of the Agenda 2030, have been intending all along. So that just gives you an idea how things are going here. We are seeing the shift from a rural world to a urban world. And it is slowly making the transition. We're watching it right before our eyes. There's a new Turkish delight. Yeah. With Turkey showing no sign of backing down on its purchase of Russian-made missile defense systems. I know, it sounds funny, doesn't it, to hear that? A NATO ally. What do we have NATO for? Oh, to protect Europe against Russia. But wait a minute, one of the NATO allies is buying Russian defense systems. There's a little problem with that. Because these S-400 batteries that they're buying from Russia, they're designed to shoot down F-35s. Yeah. Briefing on background, the official told reporters that Turkish President Erdogan, in his recent White House visit, provided an opportunity for President Trump to underline that receipt of the S-400 Russian missile defense system is not acceptable, and it's going to put you at risk for sanctions. Although Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, Defense Secretary Mark Esper, and others, which, by the way, I think Mr. Esper has had some issues, others had already made that point to the Turks before his visit to the White House. Erdogan had essentially been saying that he wanted to hear it directly from Trump. Well, he did. As a NATO ally, Turkey's $2.5 billion agreement to buy the Russian system troubled the U.S. and other members of the transatlantic alliance who say the S-400 ain't compatible with NATO systems for a lot of reasons. In an attempt to diffuse the issue, the Pentagon offered late last year to sell Turkey Patriot missile defense systems as an alternative to the Russian ones. Turkey, not interested. Erdogan's defense on the issue has already had consequences. Trump last July ended Turkey's participation in the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter program. Smart move. U.S. Army General Mark Milley, now chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, told the Senate during his nomination hearing that month that the S-400 was built to shoot down aircraft like the F-35, and that Turkey, having the S-400, could provide the Russian military sensitive information on the F-35, right? If the Turks are flying F-35s and using Russian S-400 anti-aircraft batteries designed to shoot them down, don't you think that is a military screw-up looking to happen? I mean, making money on both sides of the war is one thing, but buying weapons from both sides is just batshit crazy. Turkey has given no indication of a willingness to change course. Thursday of this week, Defense Minister Hulusi Akar told the Turkish parliament that the S-400 batteries, which arrived over the summer, will be activated as soon as the personnel who will operate them complete their training. Earlier this week, Erdogan told a meeting of lawmakers from the ruling Justice and Development Party that he had told Trump during the November 13th meeting, which was just a few days ago, that if the dispute over the F-35s is not resolved, Turkey would have to, well, look elsewhere to meet its defense needs. Really, a NATO ally is going to use non-NATO weapons and non-NATO defense systems. How interesting. How interesting indeed. Turkish officials indicated last month negotiations were underway for a potential deal to purchase Russian Sukhoi Su-35 jets. Such an agreement would only increase calls in the U.S. Congress for sanctions to be imposed against Ankara. Speaking more generally about governments that may be mulling significant purchases of Russian weaponry, the State Department official said countries should not think that because they have good relations with Washington, that would exempt them from sanctions. There's no blanket waiver for these sanctions. And I say that because there are states who will say, well, we're good, right? Because we have, we're tight, we're okay. So you're not going to give us sanctions, right? It's like, hold on. There were Turkish officials that had expressed concern that they were about to put themselves at risk of being pushed out of the F-35 program and were very concerned that there would be other direct effects yet to be realized. Oh, you have no idea. You see, we don't realize this. Maybe you don't know your geography, but Turkey sits directly between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. They also have, for centuries, for millennia, threatened Greece. That gives them direct access to southern Europe. Who's on the northern side of Europe? That's right, Russia. Russia on the north, Turkey on the south. Russia has Russian weapons. Turkey has Russian weapons. Russia is defended against just about anything that flies with the S-400 defense batteries, and Turkey has defense against anything that flies with the S-400 batteries. And Turkey will proliferate those batteries to other countries, such as Iran. And now you begin to see the problem. So, the global syndicate never quits. They never, ever stop working. They never stop planning. Something cool in the news is the new undersea rovers. This one's pretty cool. NASA engineers are already working on an underwater rover they hope would one day tackle the challenges posed by ocean worlds like Jupiter's moon Europa and Saturn's moon Enceladus. A team has been working on such a robot. It's called the Buoyant Rover for Under Ice Exploration, or BRUI. It's kind of cool. It looks like like a couple of giant wagon wheels. The ice shells covering these distant oceans serve as a window into the oceans below, and the chemistry of the ice could help feed life within those oceans. Here on Earth, the ice covering our polar oceans serves a similar role, and our team is particularly interested in what is happening where the water meets the ice. The tests will take place at Australia's Casey Research Station along the coast of Antarctica, far south of Australia. I think it's just a really, really cool story. So listen, I have a friend, his name is Sasha Stone. Used to be an old rocker, but now he's an activist. He has an organization called the International Tribunal for Natural Justice. Its mission is to apprehend the abuses and tyranny of systems and institutions, to restore truth and reason to the delivery of justice in the world, and uphold natural justice as the foundation tenet of human expression beyond the artifice of borders and boundaries. I agree with you. Wollongong in the chat room says, leave us out of it. I agree with that as well. But we're going to have no choice, I'm afraid, because it's not going to be a civil war. It's going to be a global war. There's going to be a lot of nations involved, and if they have these sophisticated weapon systems, they'll be able to do stuff. Listen, when it comes to the trafficking and exploitation of children, we're not talking about the Red Cross here, Earth Explorers. And you know that I don't like talking about this. It hurts my soul to consider that there are humans out there who do this, but there are. And the fact is that a large number of children are stolen from our communities every single year. Why? It's for a compound called adrenochrome. Adrenochrome is at the center of it all, and sadly children, especially Native American children, are the primary targets because they're young and because they are so easily terrified. According to Wikipedia, adrenochrome is a chemical compound with the molecular formula C9H9NO3, produced by the oxidation of adrenaline. That's the epinephrine in your system. The derivative carbazochrome is a hemostatic medication. Despite a similarity in chemical names, it is unrelated to chrome or chromium. The human body creates adrenaline as a hormone that can make muscles produce 10 times their normal strength. It is a rush of power that comes from being fearful that makes it possible for us to avoid being harmed. We feel no pain. We can bend steel bars and run like the wind. And when we crash, when the chemical is oxidized by a reaction in the muscles, we can feel it. Adrenochrome is real unscheduled drug by the Controlled Substance Act in the United States. But if sold, it is sold as a supplement, it can be done. Sales must conform to U.S. supplement laws. If sold for consumption as a food or drug, sales are regulated by the FDA. So far, no synthetic version exists. However, where does it come from? Well, it comes from blood. As we have seen before, the corrupt organizations working inside the United States are not only for the murder of unborn children, but also want to harvest their organs and sell them off for profit. This drug is the most addicting substance ever created. It can turn a tired, old, wrinkled body into an animal, leaping with desire and vigor. It has no harmful side effects. The facility that child trafficking is just for sex is the great deception. The blood of the innocents is the greatest drug the world has ever known, and no child is safe from the addicts of it. There's a company out there that's been formed, and it's using this blood. It's called Ambrosia. I'm trying to skip down here. AmbrosiaPlasma.com is the name of the company. 1 liter will sell for $8,000, and getting 2 liters of young blood will set you back $12,000. And what's worse is that there are parents who sell their child's blood over and over again in small amounts to these outlets who pay hundreds of dollars for a single pint. People who can get their hands on children for the purpose of harvesting their blood can earn good money farming their blood. Just to give you an idea of what kind of money we're talking about, it's about $100,000 is what one child can generate. So, we'll see you next week right here on X Squared Radio.